you doing here? Is she really?
Yes, I'm afraid she is.
You mean she's dead?
It's the word most often used, though I prefer the phrase bereft of life.
That's so sad.
It is sad, but death is something that we all go out of our way to try to avoid. We go to doctors, we exercise, we try to eat well, we do anything we can to avoid it. But sometimes people are just on a collision course. No matter what they do, death finds them. And when it's by the hand of another, sometimes they come back.
Do you mean like a ghost?
You could call them that, but could you really define what a ghost is?
A ghost is an apparition, a person that is discorporated from their body and appears to other living people typically as a nebulous image.
Very good. That's a perfect textbook answer. But tell me, do you believe in ghosts?
I would say that the idea is definitely a possibility, especially for those that have had a really traumatic death. Their souls are lost in a state of limbo because of the traumatic way in which they died.
I don't really think they're stuck in limbo. I think they are here because they want to be. Have you ever heard of the curious tale of Teresita Basa?
Teresita Basa? Not that I can recall.
Teresita Basa was a respiratory specialist at a hospital in Chicago, Illinois. She lived alone in her apartment and had a normal life. Her body was found in her apartment in February of 1977 when someone called the fire department and reported a fire at the residence. When the fire department got there, they found more than just a fire, however. Teresita had been stabbed to death. The murder weapon still lodged in her chest. She was naked and covered with a mattress. The mattress had been set on fire in an apparent attempt to get rid of the body. She had also been robbed of some jewelry. There was initially no person of interest, and the police didn't even think about tracking the missing jewelry. It seemed like a dead end, except that a woman Teresita worked with at the hospital had made a statement, saying that she would be okay with having Teresita visit her and tell her what had happened. Later that day, a series of nightmares and visions started for Remy Chua. She saw a man's face behind Teresita's. She began channeling Teresita's spirit when talking to her own husband, who was a doctor at the hospital. Through Remy, Teresita told Dr. Chua the whole story. An orderly at the hospital by the name of Alan Showery had gone to Teresita's apartment to fix the TV, where he had assaulted and killed her and set the mattress on fire. Teresita was even able to tell him that Showery had given her jewelry to his common-law wife. The police were skeptical, to say the least, but when they went to speak to Showery, they found his wife wearing the jewelry, and when faced with the evidence, Showery confessed and was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Sadly, he only served 4 years and was released in July of 1983. Showery would be around 70 years old now. In a strange twist, the cemetery listed as Teresita's final resting place doesn't seem to exist.
That's definitely interesting, but I wouldn't call that a ghost story. Remy didn't even see Teresita's ghost. She just channeled her spirit. Now I have a real ghost story, so sit back and take a listen. It was a cold winter's night in Greenbrier, West Virginia. A recently married young woman named Elvizona Heister Shue was found dead on January 23, 1897. Her husband, Erasmus Stibling Trout Shue, was a puddle of emotions upon hearing of his wife's death. There was no cause for such a sweet and young lady to have her life ended so soon. The police could find no signs of foul play, and the poor woman was laid to rest with no suspicions upon her unfortunate death, save one: her mother, Mary Jane. Mary Jane suspected that her new son-in-law may have had a hand in her daughter's death. He had always seemed a bit odd to her, and she would say that she didn't quite trust him. There was no proof that he had harmed Elva in any way, although it would come at one night from an unlikely source. One night while Mary Jane slept, Elva did appear to her in a dream. She told her how her husband had beat her, broken her neck, and stripped her life away. His hands squeezed her neck, taking away the air that she desperately gasped for. They pressed harder and harder till he eventually broke her windpipe, strangling her to death. Mary Jane woke up and raced to the police station the next day to convince him that her son-in-law had murdered her beloved daughter. And you know what? They did believe her. After exhuming Elva's remains, they could see the proof of what Erasmus had done painted all over her bruised and battered body. Erasmus was sentenced to life in prison, and as with poetic justice, that is where he died.
That's a good story, but it's hardly a ghost sighting. Most would call it merely a dream.
Yeah, I can see that, but you think you have a better one?
Well, have you ever heard of the Amityville horror and the atrocities committed by Ronnie DeFeo Jr. and the haunting that followed?
Everyone's heard of Amityville, but that's not a ghost story. DeFeo admitted to all those murders.
Ah, yes, he did. But do you know why he did it?
No.
The voices in the house made him do it, or so he claims. According to DeFeo, a sinister voice coming from the house told him to kill his parents, so he snuck into their room in the middle of the night and shot his mother and father in the head while they slept. He thought that would appease the voice, but it wasn't to be. The voice continued to harass him, insisting that he had to finish the rest of his family. The voice told him to kill his brothers and sisters, so he snuck into their beds while they slept, and one by one he killed all 4 of his siblings, just like his parents.
That is really sad and very gruesome. But that's not a ghost story. Hearing voices is much more indicative of being schizophrenic than having a paranormal experience.
That may be true, but the lady who lived in the house on Ocean Avenue after DeFeo definitely saw a ghost. Mrs. Lutz was sitting in her living room one evening having a nightcap when all of a sudden objects went flying across the room. Her wine glass and some things from the shelves launched across the room. She jumped up in fright, and when she peered into the fireplace, she saw a hooded demon in the flames. In a menacing voice, the demon ordered her to leave the house, which she did, claiming the house was filled with an unnatural evil.
That is pretty good, but I have an even better story for you.
Do enlighten me, Agent Birch. I'd surely love to hear it.
In the early morning hours of June 10th, 1912, a grisly murder took place at the Moore family home in Villisca, Iowa. 8 people, 2 adults and 6 children, were brutally murdered by an unknown entity while they slept peacefully in their beds. The thrill kill began with the parents, Josiah and Sarah, who were literally hacked to pieces by the blade and the butt of a large axe. There was so much blood and gore in that master bedroom that detectives were even unable to locate Joseph's eyeballs. All the children were killed in the same manner. Someone or something wielded that axe countless times and snuffed out each of their young lives. During the murder investigation, there were many accusations, rumors, and suspicions. Even a potential suspect had been arrested. But none ever brought a conclusion as to who or what was responsible for this ferocious atrocity. In 1998, the House of Horrors received the honor of being placed on the National Registry for Historic Landmarks. After the murders, it became known as a haunted house. Tenants of the home have said that they have witnessed a figure of a shadowy man with an axe standing at the foot of their bed. Shoes filled with blood were found about the home and have even been reported to move about on their own. One report states that closet doors were opening and closing one evening, and later that same night, the tenants were seen and heard by neighbors at 3 o'clock in the morning running out of the house screaming. It has become quite a tourist attraction for those interested in the macabre, particularly those who investigate claims of the paranormal. The house was even investigated by a well-known ghost show. During the episode, electronic voice phenomena, or EVPs, were carried out. One EVP is believed to have picked up the voice of a man saying, "I killed 6 kids." The voice was described as if someone were swinging an axe, as they said, 6 kids. Furthermore, in November of 2014, a group of family members came to the Axe Murder House in order to complete their own investigation. One of the family members, Robert Lawson, went into one of the rooms and for some unknown reason repeatedly stabbed himself in the chest. There was no motive, no further investigation was ever done. However, an unnamed person at the police station did indicate that they heard Robert Lawson say one thing: "The ghost made me do it."
Wow, I am impressed. Well, I do believe we've spent enough time in here for one day. Do try to remember to live each day like it's your last, because you never know. It just might be.
So true, Agent Damien, so true. But let us also remember the words of the great French author Marcel Proust.
He said that the voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but instead in having new eyes. So let us all open our eyes to the possibilities. Stay tuned for our next X-Files Declassified.